Unreported abuse of any kind can be very detrimental and can disable society. Where society here starts with an individual, to the family, to a whole community. And that's why any abuse has to be brought to light and has to be taken care of before it gets to that stage. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Naomi's All Inclusive World, where today I am going to be looking at abuse, what it is, and just how far the effects of unresolved abuse can be. Now, abuse in the simplest of language is an improper use of something, where something in this case can be improper use of power, improper use of, resources, or even substances. So when we don't use what is within our reach and our possession in the right way, it can end up being an abuse, whether or not that is what we intend. Now, we have so many types of abuses, some of which are fairly common and others not. Like, I'm sure you've heard statements such as child abuse, something like that, power abuse, office abuse, where you are not using the office for what it is intended for, then you are abusing that space and that opportunity. Child abuse here, where, for example, society is not letting a child be a child. When, for example, society is having a child run errands of an adult, of a parent, where here society is, for instance, not giving a child an opportunity to have a balanced life, balanced in this case where they actually can be able to play like any other normal child. Then they can be able to go through a schooling system. They can be able to make choices of things like, what food they can have, what clothes they can have, and so on. So that then when we take all those rights from that child and they end up only having to do what we say, if we're not very careful, it can actually be child abuse. And some of them can result into it even being physical. We've had cases where like a parent actually harmed a kid, physically, because this kid did not do this assignment or this chore, or this kid took money, I don't know to do what, or this kid was not respectful to the elders and something like that. And the abuse can actually become physical. So again, even to those of us who are in the caliber of parents or guardians or big brothers and sisters and so on, we have to differentiate actually between disciplining for helping that child or actually abusing that child. So yeah, physical abuse, mental abuse is also another type of abuse, whereby someone is not physically touching you, but they are really torturing you mentally and emotionally, where in this case, for example, someone just stops talking to you. Say, for example, if it's a spouse, if it's a housemate, a sibling, and so on. I mean, like they keep saying, human beings are not mind readers. So when you leave me with only silence, I don't know what to make of it, and it can be emotionally draining at times. And if we're not very careful, it can end up being an emotional abuse, where you only talk when you feel like talking, when you only communicate or respond when you feel like doing that, and so on. So the other party is left not knowing what to do, and so on. Many other different abuses also that I would like to mention just quickly for you who like probably to read more would be things like sexual abuse. We also have sexual abuse that you must have heard, also is fairly common. We have things like abandonment. When you just abandon someone, say for example you abandon a child who is dependent on you, a helpless child. When you abandon someone, and in this case who also can be a PWD, that is actually abuse. So again, let's really be careful with this, because our actions might end up being an abuse whether or not we meant for it to be. Another one can just actually be self-neglect. Apparently, you can actually be abusing yourself when you self-neglect. Where self-neglect here means there are people who just really like neglect themselves. Like the word says, you don't take a proper bath, you don't feed yourself well, you don't clothe yourself, or you've literally just neglected yourself to what I don't know. So that also can be an abuse to self. self-neglect. And remember, when you self-neglect, you are also affecting the people who live with you. Unless you are an island, and unless you live alone on an island, you live with other human beings. And therefore, when you self-neglect, you are also extending that abuse to them, because you will be smelling dirty, you will be unkempt, you will be, stinking and so on. You'll be in shameful clothing and so on, and your appearance and so on will be disgusting and shameful. So again, self-neglect has a way of rubbing to those who will be around you, who in this case will be your family members, your friends, your housemate, your neighbors, and so on. So yeah, abuse can also be very disabling, and it can stand in the way of you progressing as a person. It can actually stand in the way of that victim reaching their destination. We have seen abuses actually, standing in the way of children getting their proper education, children getting their proper childhood, that they are entitled to, that they deserve to have, and so on. So yeah, those are just some of the many abuses I thought of mentioning, and there are so many of them. So when you have time again, just read for your own knowledge and so on, so that also you will be able to pick out one, should you come across one either being inflicted on you or on someone who, in this case, could be a child, could be a PWD, a person with a disability, could be a senior or an elder person or an old person, and so on. So yeah, abuses can be very disabling if they are not handled or if they're not brought to light. Thank you for your time, and see you in my next video, where I'll be sharing something else, just in the line of this world of disability. But for now, please like, share, and subscribe, and drop me a comment of just your experience of you either having been a victim of abuse, or where you think you witnessed an abuse and you just couldn't call it or term it as such.